What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode number 300 and something. Today's podcast is going to be on the idea of overtraining, how to spot some of the signs, and also how to avoid it, and how to get more from your training. This is really important. This is important stuff, and not the stuff that's fun and sexy, but it's really important because otherwise you will essentially, if you train like many people do in jiu-jitsu, you'll probably have a relatively short jiu-jitsu career because you'll probably get injured, a bunch will be hurt, and that'll probably be a possibility. You'll underperform at competitions. It'll negatively affect your life outside of the gym, which is not what we want, right? We want this thing to be sort of additive, right? Not subtractive to your life. And on top of that, it's fairly easy to avoid. And to me, think of it like this: we all want to get better at jiu-jitsu, but when we don't train in an intelligent fashion, it's like driving your car on the freeway and trying to get to 70, but you keep hitting the brakes, right? Because if you're training really, really hard and then slamming yourself into hard training sessions right into injuries or whatever the things that are going to come from overtraining, it's like pressing the gas pedal down and then immediately hitting the brake. It's really hard to get up to speed if you're not doing it intelligently. And so we're going to talk about some strategies on how to train intelligently. This is incredibly useful and almost basically, to me, it's a must if you're an older grappler. So 30, when I say older, I'm talking about 30 or up. And yes, I know that if you're 30, you're not necessarily old in the grand scheme of living. But when it comes to athletics, you are getting to the point where in most athletic endeavors, professional athletics, people are getting ready to retire. They're basically getting ready to hang it up. And here you are getting into this thing, So it's not that you're old, but we want to be smart about it because your body will not respond or recover in the same way that it would when you were 20. That said, the sooner you start implementing these ideas and these strategies that we're going to talk about, the better off you'll be. Because I can tell you, as I'll talk about in a little bit, there was a period in my late 20s where my body was getting broken. And I'm happy to say that moving from 30 to 40, I had less injuries than I did when I was in my 20s, also had less surgeries, was more successful in competitions, all the things. And it was just about training differently. And so I'll give you some ideas on how to do that. And we'll talk about this idea of overtraining, which again is it's a problem in jiu-jitsu because a lot of times people want to hold up the training volume intensities and routines of like 20 something year old competitors, and people sort of say like this is the gold standard to shoot for. So we want to avoid that. But especially if we're older, but especially if you're just not at that same level, because as you train longer, you can take on more volume. But when you're newer, you have to be a little bit more careful. And if you're somewhere in between, then you have to go about adding that volume in intelligently. We'll talk about how to do that in a second. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Athletic, ATHLETHC. They are THC and cannabinoid mints. And so they combine different cannabinoids along with a very mild dose, like 2 milligrams of THC. So nothing crazy, nothing that's going to make you hallucinate or see sounds or be able to feel colors, right? It's just very mild. And they have 3 different mint products that currently they have: a Rebound, which obviously is focused on mostly recovery. They have Power, which is focused on trying to get ready for some intense exercise. And then there's Flow, which is obviously to try to help you get into a flow state. Now, again, I don't use them every single day, disclaimer, right? But I do like using them from time to time, whether I'm doing some writing or creative stuff. Sometimes if I'm in a mood where I'm going to go into the gym and play around and experiment with a new position, and I want to have that relaxed mindset that sort of facilitates that, I will take the Flow one. And sometimes if I'm just banged up and I want to try to improve my ability to relax and get ready to recover through my sleep, I'll take the Rebound one. If you guys want to check out their products, you can go to their website at ATHLETHC.com and use the promo code Chewjitsu10 for 10% off the order. Also, if you guys want to get some great jiu-jitsu gear, you can check out our buddies over at Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. They make terrific products. They have great customer service. They're jiu-jitsu black belts who roll, they compete, they do all the same stuff that we do, and they make products for jiu-jitsu athletes. They support a lot of people in the community, like the PGF, all that stuff. But on top of that, again, they make terrific stuff. I get my rash guards and shorts made through them because I love the quality, I love the fit and the feel of it. And again, if you guys want to check out any of their stuff, from the gear to the merch, you can check them out at epicrollbjj.com / and the promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. And guys, if you wanna check out one of our longtime sponsors, Charlotte's Web, they've got some really cool new products that I've been using that I actually really like. They've got a Stay Asleep gummy, which is a CBN product, which is focused mostly on facilitating sleep, right? And they have another one too. I forgot the name of it, but it's like a reishi mixture with like chamomile and a bunch of other stuff in it. And I've been using those 2 products together at night because they sent us some samples to try out, and I really like those 2 together. Been using them in the Stay Sleep gummy in particular, that's CBN, that, like that'll knock me on my butt pretty well. So, like, for me, I don't know about you guys, I'm one of these guys where because of my job, my brain's always going, right? Like, I'm always thinking about stuff that's going on. I've got, family, I've got the job, and if you're a small business owner, you understand you just can't just turn off the brain. It just your work's always with you. And then with the creative stuff I do, I have, like, ideas. I literally wake up in the middle of the night and have ideas, and I have to write them down, and then my sleep's screwed. So sometimes I have trouble with that. And I remember the other night, I just could tell my brain was just chatter, So I was like, "All right, let me pop one of those." And I took 2 gummies because that's what the recommended dose was, and I was out. I woke up groggy the next morning and I was like, "Oh man," I was like, it really knocked me out. So the next day I took 1 gummy, and that seemed to be a good dose for me personally. But if you guys want to check out any of their stuff, go to charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu30. And again, if you want to check out that sleep gummy that they have, Stay Asleep with the CBN, definitely check that out if sleep is something that you want to try to improve and see how it affects you. Also, if you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can roll on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And when you do, you will get a list of all the perks that you get for joining up. And when you join up, you will have access to everything inside the members library, including warm-up routines specifically for Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. So we're getting ready to get into the ideas of overtraining and recovery and all that stuff. And again, it's a really useful idea. Like one of my guys last night, you know him, Thomas.
Mhm.
Thomas was in there, and he's
Mhm.
a athletic guy, plays tennis and everything else, but he was, I mean, just we were doing X guard, and his hips, man, his hips were bothering him, and so I had him do the hip stuff that we've done at the camps that's inside the members area of the Patreon. And, just it literally took we did it within 1 round. So everybody else is rolling, and I said, "Hey, man, let's do this real quick." Took us 5 minutes to do both hips, and he was kinda moving around afterwards, and he said, "Man, that feels a lot better." And so it's amazing what just a little bit of targeted stretching and mobility work does. You don't have to spend an hour every day. It can be very targeted to a specific area that seems to be a problem for you. Eugene put together some really cool routines for us at one of our jiu-jitsu camps, and those are included in the Patreon membership. You get those as access, or you get access to those when you join. If you want to get details, go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to get more information. Also, guys, if you want to get my daily email, you can do that by going to my website at jujitsu.net/join, or you can just search up my, daily Chew Crew email at jujitsutraining.com. But when you join up, you'll get access to my daily email. You'll also get my ebook and video that I give away, which goes through 12 different strategies on how to improve your jiu-jitsu through focused rolling, because focus is really, really important. If you want to get more from your training, got to be focused. And you can get that again at jujitsu.net/join, or on my website at jujitsutraining.com. So with that stuff out of the way, guys, let's get into this idea of overtraining. So first off, I want to sort of get this out of the way. If longevity and jiu-jitsu longevity is something that's very important to you. If you're one of those people that wants to be able to train for a really long time, and you want to be able to, pick your kids up when they come up to you and go, "Dad, dad,
Mhm.
mama," right? Whatever. Then you want to avoid getting sucked into the cult of jiu-jitsu, right? This cult of overtraining, where the only thing that's important is going harder, going more, right? This is something I fell victim to, because when I first started training, this was just kind of the answer. I came from the 90s and early 2000s era of no pain, no gain, always go harder. And then when it came to jiu-jitsu, we didn't really know what the hell we were doing. So it was just, you know, whenever you lack technique or any intelligent training, you just train harder, train more, 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 more. And so there was this period right when I was around about 28 years old where I remember I was getting up in the morning and my joints sounded like Rice Krispies. I mean, it's like I would get up in the morning and you just hear this like snap, crackle, pop sort of thing going on. And I remember I would mosey to the shower. Like, the first thing I had to do in the morning was take a hot shower because my body was so stiff, and I would take a hot shower, and then I would go upstairs because at the time, I was living on the lower level of the house, and so I didn't wanna go up the stairs until I had my hot shower. And that's not kinda where you wanna be when you're 28, right? I mean, 20 that's not a good not a good place. But I kept pushing because what do we gotta do? We gotta train more. And so then I had this string of injuries, right? I remember running into injury after injury after injury, 2 surgeries, 3 serious injuries, roughly about actually about 8 months off the mat from any real training total, right? Not ideal to wrap up the end of your 20-year-old days, right? And then I remember kind of the last time where it was pretty sad. I remember being very depressed about it. I It was right before my 29th birthday. I remember, I'd done all the surgeries, all that stuff, was, back to training, the whole deal, and I remember I went into the gym and was ready, "Let's go get after it, da, da, da," for a hard training session, and I was just warming up, and I did a reverse lunge, and I felt a twinge in my knee, and it was something with my meniscus again. I was like, "Mother," and I remember being laid up that weekend watching the pans and competitions and just laying there with my knee jacked up, just depressed. I mean, just depressed. Like, what I don't wanna go through this again. I just got back, I had surgery on this one, I had 2 surgeries that year, I didn't wanna have a 3rd and whatever else, and so that was kind of for me the point where I had seen the writing on the wall with the older grapplers who the generation that came before me and seeing how badly they were messed up, and then I was seeing the effects that it was having on my body at a young age, where I thought to myself, I gotta do something differently. This isn't gonna work well, because if I keep training like this, then I'm just gonna get jacked up and I'm gonna be broken. And so then I started to begin the process of figuring out how my body was screwed up, and, with people like Eugene's help, I've kind of got a better grip on that and figuring out ways to adjust training and so forth. And over the last years, I've found a way where I can train really consistently, be effective in jiu-jitsu, still in competitions, but at the same time, train at a good clip without ever having to take much time off the mats, which I think is what we're all after, right? We all understand that consistency is really important. And so I would tell you that not every day for me is pulhada, right? Isn't that what they say? Every day pulhada
Yeah.
means every day go hard. Like, every day is not a hard day for me. Every day is not a hard day, and that's important because I think a lot of times we like that hard training. We like the feeling that comes from feeling, like, accomplished, like, "Ooh, I got after it today." Just because it's hard training doesn't mean it's good training. You can train really hard, and it can be incredibly aimless, and you can get nothing out of it. And so, my training has changed a lot, and we're gonna talk about some different strategies on how I change my training and how you could adjust your training. But I figured one of the first things we would get into when we talk about psyche of overtraining and, avoiding this cult of jiu-jitsu where, the cult of overtraining, the cult of hard training every day, is to talk about some of the signs that you're overdoing it, right? Just like they have they have those videos and those ideas of, "Here's 10 signs you're in a cult."
Yeah.
Well, here's some signs that you're overdoing it. Now, just because one sign is present doesn't mean that you are necessarily overtraining, but it's something to consider if you look back at your training and you realize you haven't had an off day in 2 weeks, or you've been really pushing it and you start to notice trends, right? So obviously one of the main signs that you're overtraining is that you're running into injury after injury, or you have injuries that never heal. This was kind of the situation with me back in, you know, whenever that was, when I was 28, 29. I was having repeat injuries over and over again. I had injuries that just would routinely kind of come back, and they were never given enough time to fully recover. And again, it was a symptom of me overtraining, pushing it too hard, never giving myself any time to recover. And also, I would tell you, obviously, older grapplers and older people will understand this. But if I do have anybody that's younger listening, understand that everything that you do to your body, it is accumulative, and it does take its toll on you later. So, for instance, one of our guys at the gym, he went to the doctor recently for a back problem, and the doctor asked him after looking at his MRI and his X-rays, he said, "Hey, man, did you injure your back like a long time ago?" And he said, "Yeah, I was like deadlifting or something," and he screwed up his deadlift, pulled his back out really bad, like 20, 30 years ago." And he said, "Yeah, we can see that." And so,
Yeah.
just because you become younger and sort of youth and the superpower that it brings helps you get over it, letting your body get run ragged too much when you're younger, you'll pay for it later. And so, again, you want to train at a good clip, train well, but again, if you're running into constant injuries and your body's just constantly broken, it's probably a sign you're overdoing it relative to your ability to handle that kind of training.
Yeah, I agree. And guys, sorry about my voice. I'm a little raspy today. But yeah, Chewy's 100% right. Like with the injuries, just kind of, it's like, it's almost like you never get out of that rut. Like you can't stay healthy. Um, and your body's more easily injured. Like you have more, like you're more susceptible to it. Stuff doesn't heal as quickly. I think those are some signs for sure that you're kind of putting too much load on your system. And Chewy, I'm just curious, between your knee surgeries, how much time was it between those?
Well, the knee surgeries was 10 years.
Okay.
I had one on the right knee, one on the left knee.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, do you think I think we talked about the first knee injury or the first knee surgery kind of came right back to it.
Yep.
The second one, you took a little more time, a more measured approach.
Yeah, well, so the first one, I mean, I competed it literally for on the first one, I was 19 years old. I competed a month after coming back from surgery.
It's gnarly.
So, I came back, was, like, doing a little rehab and stuff like that, immediately got back into it, and then and I remember actually I used to have a lot of trouble out of that knee, and then with the second surgery that I had in 2014, you gave me the exercises that I had to do, and I was doing them religiously, and I sort of made a plan for myself because many people, I think you'll appreciate this. When I was coming back from the injury, I wanted to keep myself honest because I know what I have a tendency to do. In the gym, I will come in with every intention of taking it easy, not rolling, whatever, and I just end up rolling really hard. So basically, I wrote a plan out for 12 weeks after the surgery that was like, this is what my plan is going to be. I'm doing these things on this point. I'm graduating as long as I feel okay to this next level. And even
Yeah.
if I felt fine, I would still hold it there. And I didn't allow myself to roll like a full roll until after 12 weeks. And even then, it still wasn't the hardest roll ever, right? It was still me kind of getting back to it. And it was funny because I remember when I came back, um, we were doing positional rolling, and I remember one of our guys, Derek, he big Derek, at
Mm.
the gym. I remember I was sucking wind, because I'd been off for the mats for 12 weeks without really rolling, so my body wasn't in the best of shape, for some of the purple belts and stuff like that in the gym, and I remember he was laughing because they were all, getting the better of me more than they normally would, and he said, "You guys gotta roll with him tonight because he won't be like this for very long. You gotta
Yep.
get out there and get it," you know? And so,
Yeah.
I started off about 12 weeks after my meniscus surgery, right? Which again
Yeah.
worked out fine. And the difference between the two is pretty noticeable because my left knee regained full movement. My right leg has a few degrees of like extension lost, so I cannot fully extend my right leg because I was a dumbass coming back from my recovery. That's what I suspect anyway.
Yeah. Most likely. And it's funny that the second surgery was 10 years later. And, you think if you're younger, recovery's easier, faster, get back to it, your body's more resilient. It's more kind of apt to kind of get your range of motion back. And I almost feel like you probably got everything back, but because of the constant stress and the soreness and the push, that knee started kind of maybe had some swelling in it because that's
Mhm.
normal.
Oh yeah,
And it just kind of never got back to where it needed to. And so it's a common thing because what you had was they cleaned out the meniscus, and when they do that, it's not really like nothing's repaired per se, just clean it out,
right.
shave it off. So it's like you feel pretty dang good. If once the kind of swelling resolves, you feel like you can kind of get back to it, and you're not quite there. You're probably
Yeah.
not quite as strong. Just a side note, what happens a lot of times after surgery, they don't know exactly what the reason. There's numerous maybe assumptions why it happens. You lose some good activation in that quad. That quad doesn't want to work as well.
Mhm.
So that takes some time. It could be from the trauma of the surgery, it could be from like the tourniquet, but that kind of stuff is really important because your legs just not quite as strong. It takes a little
Yeah.
time to build that up. Some people get that back sooner than others, but there's usually some of that that's going on. So when you don't have as quite as strong of a leg, well, that can even lead to other issues, other
Mhm.
injuries, re-injuring the same leg or another part of your body. A lot of times another leg or the other leg. So it's just one of those things, just being smart about like having a measured approach and kind of a graded approach, which is what you did. You kind of got yourself back a little bit at a time, like and checked in with yourself. That's one thing you said was really smart. You said, "Oh, am I where I need to be at this stage of the game? Cool. Let's move on to the next one." Not going past to where you were, you know, where you're comfortable. And that's a common thing too, is people will like just say, "Well, I'm this far out. I should go to the next thing." But you got to go based on how you feel.
Yep, and I'll talk about this, stuff more towards the second half of the podcast. There was something that I've done this over and over again to help keep tabs on myself. It's a simple practice that can help you sort of figure out the figure out how training affects you and also figure out like maybe the more ideal volume for yourself. The next one, and these are ones that I either notice in guys, or I notice in myself, is just getting sick. Like I've seen so many times where guys like this used to always happen in our old MMA days where we would have like an MMA camp, eight, there might be like 6 or 8 guys fighting. And then we would be training hard, and then, it'd be like a month out from the fight and everybody's getting sick, getting a cold, getting a flu, whatever. And again, I could always look back on it and I would notice that when I got sick, I would notice that I was overdoing it. Here's a great example. I remember, um, this is like, again, one of these times where I was like, okay, I need to remind myself of this. I was in the gym, and this was, I want to say 2015. And I remember I was feeling a little off, not feeling great. You know what I mean? Just a little different, whatever. And one of the guys at the gym, Rich, one of our black belts now, he was a brown belt at the time. He was egging me on because he wanted me to get on the mats, and he's kind of, busting me up a little bit. So I got on the mats and we had some tough rolls, and I got after it, felt all right. And then the next like couple days later, I got strep throat. I hadn't had strep throat since I was a kid. I went into the doctor and like, because I saw the white spots in my throat, and I sent a message to my one of my students who's a doctor, and I said, "Man, I think I got strep." He's like, "Yeah, you got strep, all right." And so I went to the doctor, and they had to give me some medicine for it. But maybe I would have gotten it one way or the other, but I can't help but feel like, man, like I just pushed myself right in over the edge, And there's a lot of times where I've just noticed over the years where if I come up to this point where I'm feeling a little rough, just a little down, a little sluggish, whatever, and I just back off, the next day I come back and I feel amazing and nothing
Mm.
happens. But then if I try to just push through that, and there's a difference between being lazy and like your body wanting to just sit and do nothing, and just feeling like really banged up, tired, mental, like physically just blah. And I would feel that, and then when I would try to push through that too much, then it was like I would get sick. Yeah, I just sort of noticed that trend. So just be mindful that if you notice that you keep getting sick all the time, especially if you notice you keep getting sick during these hard bouts of training, like maybe you're getting ready for a competition or something like that, then again, keep track of that so you can sort of include some different things like rest days to back off the gas pedal a little bit to allow yourself to recover.
Yeah, just modulating that training is super important.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, 100%. Just listen to your body and just knowing you do enough times and you kind of know, like, okay, I feel like last time I got sick, I was feeling this way. So let's just back off kind of thing.
Yep.
Smart. Yeah.
Here's another one that I always notice, and this is more with like my work type stuff or the stuff off the mat. I'm going to combine a few of these together, but brain fog and lack of focus, like that's a really common one, right? Like I just notice that, like I can't explain it to you. My mind's not firing as sharp. I just feel sort of lethargic, and my brain's just it's just not firing like it should be. And I can't stay focused on things like I normally would. Even in the gym when I'm training, I just don't have that same level of that ability to zone in. Now, there's a time to push through this for sure, but again, unless there's some reason why you need to push through this, this might be a good time to say, "Oh, I'm just running into a wall here mentally. Let me back off for a day. Let me lighten up the training load and see how I feel tomorrow."
Yeah. Um, No, I agree. I mean, like again, do you notice anything? Is it just more outside of training, or do you notice anything in training, like maybe hard
Oh yeah, in
times?
training, I will literally lose the focus. I'll lose that drive to want to go for things. Like for instance, in my game, I'll notice that there's some days where I will get on the mats and I'm there and I play very defensively because I just don't have the drive to get after it. Whereas
Yeah,
when I'm refreshed and feeling good, I have that drive. Let's go drill. Let's get after it. Let's push that kind of thing. And so I notice that a lot of times I notice it myself. I'll have those days where I'm there, And again, there's times to do that. There's times to push through that. But again, you just have to start to, and we'll talk about more later, but you have to keep track of things at least to a degree to kind of know when it's maybe you're just being a little tired from work or whatever, or when it's, hey, you've had 5 hard days in a row, you need to back off and let your body heal. But I noticed it also too outside of the gym too, where like I'll sit down to do some videos or write some emails or to work on some programming for the classes, and I mean it's just my brain is shot, like nothing's happening and I'm just there, and I'll drink some coffee or something like that and it doesn't even do anything, which is not how it usually works for me.
Mhm. Is your timing off? Do you feel like you're on the
Oh yeah,
mats when you're training? Yeah, timing feels like off.
timing's
Can't
way
pull the
off.
trigger.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, it's not even the pull triggers, like, I'm just late. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just late, I'm sluggish, it's my body sees what I'm supposed to do and it just doesn't do it, you know? Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
another common one is for me is I notice that if I start to get into sort of the realm of overtraining where I'm overdoing it a bit too much, I'll have an elevated heart rate in the morning, which is pretty, common for the stuff. Your heart rate's elevated, and then also too, my sleep's off. I just have bad sleep. A lot of times for me, it's like I'll notice that when I'm overdoing it, I'll fall asleep, but I just immediately wake up. Like my
Yeah.
body's, I don't know why. I don't know if it's a stress response or whatever, but I'll just wake back up and then I'm just awake. And then I struggle to get to sleep. Whereas when I'm training, it doesn't make sense too, because you think eventually you get so tired you just crash. But it doesn't work that way. And so if I train and I train with at a good clip, a good pace, I tend to fall asleep just fine. But usually if I start having trouble with my sleep, that's another indicator that I'm overdoing it. Also for just kind of talking about bedroom stuff. If you notice your libido going down, and especially you're like a dude, like probably overdoing it a little bit because I mean, most of us, I mean, I don't know about most fellas, but my wife can just breathe on me the wrong way and like that's good enough for me. Like I'm ready to go, I mean, but she it's a little different for her, but for us fellas, sometimes it isn't so difficult. And so if you notice that maybe it's a problem for you, then maybe you're overdoing it. You're laughing because you're the same way.
Dude, she'll like it's like, she just look at me like that. She
Yeah.
she's like, "I just looked at you." I'm like, "No, you didn't. You looked at me." Like, no, not like that. That's not the way it works. I know it takes literally sometimes it just takes nothing, like random normal shit, normal behavior, and we're like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
It's not a sign, Eugene. Calm down." So, but breathe on me the
It's
wrong way.
it's funny. Like there's I saw some video. It was like things that my wife does that I think are hot, and
Yes.
it was hilarious. It's like walking, just
Yeah.
standing in place doing dishes or something. Like just random, just anything. You just see your wife and go, "Ugh," you know.
Yeah. She's got yoga pants on. I'm like, "What's up? How's it going?" No, but
Yeah.
she usually has yoga pants on most of the time. Anyway, moving on. Sorry guys about my raspy voice. Maybe it sounds nice. I don't know. Maybe my wife will like my raspy voice. I don't
There
know.
you go.
A little deeper.
Maybe that's how you can convert those yoga
How,
pants into something later.
how's
Hey,
it going?
baby.
All right. Moving on. It's hard to recover
Yeah.
from that one, but we're gonna try.
Weight
Where you at?
loss. So, weight loss could be another one.
Yeah.
If you just notice your weight is just coming off you, maybe a little too quickly or whatever, that can be a problem. Also, too, I would tell you that sometimes when people get into jiu-jitsu and they're trying to lose weight, they can bottom out their calories way too much too quickly. And a lot of times it can run them into not such a good place where one, I mean, at the very least, they're going to get a little bit of extra metabolic damage where, your body starts to if you think about the way that the body works, if all of a sudden you start taking in less calories, if you go too deep into a caloric deficit, you can run into a situation where your body then essentially drops its BMR, where it says, okay, like your basal metabolic rate, essentially the amount of calories you burn on a just living basis, right?
Yeah.
Doing basic functions. Your body then starts to try to adjust that because it's like, oh crap, we're being starved, we're dying. Your body goes into survival mode. So, one of the things when you do lose weight, you may increase or you may encounter some rapid weight loss in the beginning out of water weight and so forth, especially if you change your diet. But overall, you shouldn't be losing a massive amount of weight every single week, maybe a pound, maybe 2 pounds at most, because any more than that, you're starting to get into a place where you're losing weight too damn quickly. Especially if you're not taking any sort of drugs or medication to affect that. So, just something to keep in mind. If your weight's plummeting and you don't have any sort of reason for it to do that, it might be time to either increase the food a little bit, add some extra carbs in around your meals, or a little bit extra protein or something like that. Or it could be a sign that you're just overdoing it in the gym.
Chewy,
And
why
Eugene,
do you
you're kind of a naturally smaller guy. I mean, not smaller, but like you're a mid-sized guy, but you're a naturally thin dude. Have you ever experienced some issues where you just you have a lot of trouble keeping weight on because you're training?
When I was younger,
Okay.
not as hard now. But I'm also so much more dialed in. Like I literally know what I expect my weight to be the day after training, like the morning
Sure.
after. I usually weigh in with Eli. Tuesdays tend to be a harder training day for me, Tuesday night. And so Wednesday morning I weigh in. I'm usually lighter on that day. I know that like that's kind of the trend. But I used to have a hard time. And I think like so much of it is eating the right foods, number one. It's not just eating, it's just eating the right shit that's got the proper nutrition that your body needs. I think a big thing is getting enough protein in. Initially, I just didn't get enough protein in. So if you don't get enough protein in, they can definitely impact, your muscle, ability to build muscle, things like that.
I'd probably say even carbs. I don't know about
Carbs too.
you,
Carbs is a huge thing. Exactly. Yeah, carbs as
because
well.
I know, Eli was talking to me about you, and I know you were eating a ton of carbs, relative to like probably what you were before.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you, man, carbs are important for energy. As people kind of poo-poo on carbs, like, oh, you need protein, you need carbs, you also need fat. When and Eli's talked about this too. If you really are trying to, people like, oh, low fat this, low fat that, but what can happen is you can mess with your hormones and stuff. Like you need fat in your system. Now you gotta have a right amount of each one. Everything's got to be kind of nice, and you have to eat for your needs. Like, so yeah, I mean, it was funny. Like I ate, I was trying to cut weight for ADCC. And I mean, I was like eating, I was cutting my calories or my carbs, and then we kind of started ramping back up to keep me, because I started like my weight just kind of
Started dropping too much.
Yeah, when staying where I needed to. So I think the diet thing is so important for that piece, and I just don't have I don't carry it, luckily, and I don't carry a ton of body fat on me naturally, so I just don't. I think that could be something, but I've kept myself thin for most of my life too, I think. And I don't know if that's good or bad, or I haven't tried to, but I've been as heavy as 185, I believe, in the past year or two.
Big,
And then
big Eugene.
185. And then I've been as light. I was about 166 for the ADCC. So, and I looked better though. I think my proportions were better just because of more muscle and just lifting consistent eating for my body. Chewy, I want to ask you this. This is, and there's certain in my head, I've spoken to people, taking time off from injuries, or if they're injured or this or that. What was it for you? And what do you think is the common theme for people, like avoiding taking time off, just constantly pushing themselves to the
Like
limit?
why?
Why do you think it is? What do you think it is?
So one, there's a few things. One is that you have this mistaken sort of thought process that taking time off equals falling behind, right? Because we live in a society that only values like going, going, going. You look at all the stuff out there, it's right, like it's grind, hustle, get after it, whatever, which is which is good. I'm all for that, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at training, there's the yin and the yang, right? There's the training, the actual active part of it, and then there's the other side of it, which is like you need to recover. Like you have to rest. Your recovery, like Eli will always talk about this one when we talk about training, right? Your rate of improvement is basically limited by your ability to recover. So in bodybuilding, for instance, which is what he does, you can't build muscle without recovering. You can't build muscle without the food, without the sleep and the rest. Well, it's not necessarily just muscle, but like as a grappler, you can't develop the neuromuscular connections. You can't develop the resiliency. You can't recover from these hard training sessions to come back and be able to absorb all that information that was coming in without rest. Because think about it, like when you go into your gym, a lot of times it's like you work on something and you don't immediately figure the technique out. Sure, you might sometimes, but a lot of times what happens is you work on a position or a technique for, a couple days, months, whatever. And then it's like one day it just sort of falls into place and clicks. Many of you have had this experience where you go into the gym and all of a sudden you feel like you're better and you can't explain why you feel better. You just all of a sudden you're able to do things you couldn't do before. And so this is your body developing itself over time. And just like, with a person who's lifting weights, like you do hundreds of reps to build your shoulders up. And initially it doesn't show any results, but then over time, months later, you might look in the mirror and go, oh, snaps, look at my shoulders. They're looking bigger. Same kind of thing happens. And so I think that's like one of the biggest problems is people do not respect the rest side of it, the non-training side of it. And the only thing that they appreciate, the only thing that they focus on is training. And they have this mistaken view that if they take any time off, that they're falling behind. I remember years ago, kind of going back to my story about, overdoing it. I remember coming back from a nose surgery. So my nose had been broken and I'm coming back to the gym, right? And I remember that I wasn't allowed to roll for like months because I had to let this because my nose was shattered in 3 places. And so it was so susceptible to being broken. And you don't realize how often your nose is getting touched or pushed on until you're trying to avoid it, right? So once I was given the okay to lift weights, because initially I couldn't lift weights because of the pressure. Once I could come back to lifting weights, I was in the gym. I mean, dude, I was in the gym doing cardio, and then I was in the gym doing I was lifting weights one night really late. I remember I even made a Instagram post, and I posted a picture of the gym. And again, this is like 2014 or 13 or something, and I said, "Making up for lost time."
Hmm.
Right? That was my mindset because I got taken off the gym. I got to make up for this lost time. And I think a lot of people carry that with them, that they're making up for something that they don't want to fall behind. And you're like, fall behind what? You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Fall behind whom? Someone in the gym with you? Like they're going to have injuries and setbacks too. Just give it time, right? Like you can't be worried about that. And so I think those are the two biggies. Is that people feel like they're wasting time or falling behind because they're not training or going and doing something, or if they recovering from an injury. But the reality is it's kind of like it's like me and my son, we were reading Three Little Pigs the other night,
Mhm.
and Three Little Pigs, it's like some of these new books miss the whole point. Like they just it's like like the Three Little Pigs we've been listening to or that we were reading, like I have to manually add in the moral of the story to it because like you're reading it and it's basically like, there's the three little pigs, everybody knows the story. The two brothers that fuck off and, build their house of crap, sticks and hay, they run to their brother in the brick house who's been working his tail off. And then they come in there and then he takes care of them and then, keeps them safe from the wolf. That's a terrible lesson. Right. So like I have to remind them. So like, and when I teach them, I was like, the piggies that made their house out of hay, that made their house out of sticks, that didn't do the foundational work, they got eaten. The big bad wolf eats them. I mean, he just scarfs them down, or
Serious.
bacon and country ham, whatever. And the third little piggy, he gets to live. You know why he gets to live? Because he worked his tail off and did what he was supposed to do. So likewise, I can tell you many times that I've seen a lot of people approach their like injury recovery like the two little pigs. They didn't want to do the things. They didn't want to take the time to do it. They wanted to do the fun stuff, right? And a lot of times when you're laying those bricks, so to speak, with your with these really boring movements to develop your injury recovery and things like that, that's where you're able to come back from injuries, right? And again, rest, you can think of this as a day-to-day thing. Rest is a part of that. Recovery is a part of that. We'll get to some ideas on that in just a second. But, those boring things, those are important because those give you a rock solid foundation so that you can, avoid the boogeyman of injuries, right? So it's not the big bad wolf you got to worry about, but the injuries and the not getting able to train, getting sick, just having poor performances, all that stuff. So,
Yeah, I've seen it with like newer belts, like white belts, even blue and some purples that feel like if they're injured, they're gonna forget. They'll fall behind, but they're gonna forget techniques. They're gonna get worse. I was like,
yeah.
you won't. You have to kind of get creative of what you can do outside of the gym and what you can do in the gym if you're kind of dealing with an injury. Well, there's some capacity, hopefully you can train in, but also building that connection of the stuff you're doing outside the gym, your rehab or your mobility or whatever, even diet, things like that. Have that as a connection of that's part of your jujitsu training. It's going to help you. Um, I just think people see those things so separate. They think that being on the mats and rolling is the only type of training that matters and that counts, and that's not true. I think for me, being someone that can right now, I'm kind of got my voice is raspy. I'm not pushing my body as much. I'm trying to recover, make sure I'm healthy. And I was talking to, Eli, and I was like, man, I can't push it as hard in the gym right now because I'm trying to get over this thing I'm dealing with. However, what I can't control is my diet. I can make sure I'm dialed in. I'm adjusting my macros and I'm doing things the
Mhm.
right way to where I don't completely fall off the wagon. So like start to think about maybe you can't train the way you want to. Think about things you can do and things you can control. And that helps some of that negativity, some of that feeling, those bad feelings. Cause I was like, well, I can control how I eat. I can control making sure I'm doing certain things the right way and I'm not completely falling off the wagon. I'm doing my cardio, for example. I'm keeping myself healthy in some other ways.
Yep. So here, let's talk about some ideas. So again, if you're just having that general funk feeling in your body and you're feeling broken and everything else, let's talk about some ideas. The big thing is, again, this is about training smart. It's a necessity for older grapplers, and but it's useful for older young fellas too. Again, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, if you're young, you can run your body ragged and let it get run down when you're younger, and you'll probably recover for the most part, but you'll feel it later. So you want to take care of this bucket of bones that you got now because it's the only one you got, right? You get one body that you get to to use, and again, even no matter how much medical technology they develop, it's still not going to be as good as what God gave you, right? So let's get into it. So first off, one of the things that's really important, and this could be is to practice for some of you guys, is to keep a journal of sorts with training and how you feel. Now, again, this isn't necessary. You don't have to do it, but I would tell you that, and you can put this on your phone. You can just put this in your notes or whatever app you have, right? But I would tell you that this was really useful to me is kind of, writing just like a little quick blurb. So, right, like I would have like Monday, hard rolling session, lifting session in the morning, whatever it was, felt great, so forth. A sentence. Boom. Tuesday, sentence. Because like when I'm doing my like every day I wake up and weigh myself so I can see what my weight's at, and then I sort of mark down how training felt yesterday and how I feel today. Now, why do I do that? Well, I can look for trends as I'm going along, and I can see, man, every time I have like this 2-a-day session, I'm really run down, or my weight's coming down, or whatever, right? So that allows me to have just something to look back on. And when you're starting to think that maybe I'm overdoing it, you can look back on the trends. Like, wow, every time I notice every time I do 3 2-a-days in a row, I get sick or something. You can just think of it this way. And so keeping a little journal or training log with some different things to include could be weight in the morning, like when you weigh up. And the reason why you weigh in the morning and not after training is because your weight can fluctuate so much during the day. Like a lot of people I see them weighing in like like right before training or right after training. Terrible times to weigh in. Best time to weigh in is in the morning because first off, if you're going to compete, then you're going to wake up in the morning and weigh yourself and you're going to see where you're at, right? But two, it's going to give you the most consistent weight on a day-to-day basis because again, you could eat a little bit, drink a little extra water, and boom, your weight's going to be up a pound or two very easily. And so
Yeah.
if you weigh in the morning, you get a better read as to where your weight is. And so weighing yourself in the morning can be useful. And then from there, just like, what did you do yesterday training wise? How do you feel today getting up? And you can just kind of keep track of those things. It can be very useful. And so I do this with a lot of stuff. I started, doing this years ago. I remember I had a false scare with my heart when I was like 30. And I remember they like told me to just kind of keep a journal, whatever.
Mhm.
And I kind of kept a journal of how things felt or whatever. And then I started just doing it for training. I was like, that'd be probably a pretty good idea, And so I just keep it on my notepads and I have it there. And that again, where I would tell you is, or what I would tell you is that years ago, I remember like looking over that and I could find that there were times and periods where, I mean, I didn't skip a training session for almost like weeks. And then oh, I need to take a day off, right? I need to
Yeah.
rest, whatever. Something else to, yeah.
Yeah, I got something. So in physical therapy, when we're taking somebody through a training or do some kind of exercise, there's different scales, but a simple name is RPE, rating of perceived exertion.
Yep.
So you can use a 1 to 10 scale. 1 is like you're not doing it, like you're sleeping is a 1. 10 is like you're redlining. You can make it 1 to 20, whatever you want.
Right.
And you may say, well, this week I want to keep my average at a 5 or something, whatever it is in training. So you can like after training, you can say, well, that was a tough training session. I would rate like that training session a 7. So you may say, well, I'm at a 7. I want to keep myself at a 5. So you might have to have some lighter training sessions to bring that overall average weekly score down. That's something that you can kind of keep track of when you're bringing yourself, like when you're trying to get back to training. Maybe you're like, I want my intensity to be at this level. So if I have a really hard day, I have to have some days worked in where it's a little bit lighter. I'm not working as hard. So you can kind of rate yourself daily with trainings and just kind of get an idea on that. And then you can say, well, this week or this month was a 6. Next month, I want to be at a 7 or 8.
Yep.
I want to be training that hard. And if I'm getting closer to a tournament, whatever, my rating's going to go up. So it's just a way you can kind of keep track of how hard your training sessions were. And just like you said, same thing. You're journaling, just using a different, scoring criteria.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times what I'll do
Mhm.
too is I kind of have a general idea of total volume. So I'll look at it as like, all right, I'm going to try to keep my total like rolling time to
Perfect.
under an hour total rolling time, right? So if I'm for instance in a day, let's say if I'm doing a 2 a day, I might drill some and then roll some with the class. And so if we're doing 6-minute rounds, then after I get to a certain number of rounds, I'll stop and then come back in the evening, do a certain number of rounds and stop and basically keep it to under an hour. During our open mats on Sundays, I typically try to keep it to around 6 rounds max. Now the open mat's 2 hours long, but I'm like, I know six rounds for me of rolling is enough to where I feel pretty damn good, but not too bad. I can easily recover from that the next day. If I start to get into like 8 to 10 rounds, I start to get like a little bit sluggish as of where I'm at now. I also know that I don't like to combine leg days and jiu-jitsu. So I noticed that multiple times where I would, sort of break this rule and I would do a leg day and I would come back in and train, maybe 6 to 8 hours later, I would do jujitsu. I would come back and then I would always end up pulling a groin or I would pull a muscle or I would just perform awful because I was just exhausted because leg days are so intense, right? And even though if you're not lifting that heavy, just such a muscularly, is that a word? It's such a
Yes.
demanding type of lift on your muscular and neurological system, right? Because you're doing something that requires your entire body in those big muscles of your legs and your hips and everything
Mhm.
else are big muscles. And so with that, I was like, all right, don't combine these. And so you got to figure out how you respond to things. And so this is another thing to keep in mind is that you kind of want to figure out your overall volume and what seems to be helpful to you. And again, I'm using words like volume, right? How much you're training, how many rounds you're doing, how many times you're lifting a week. You got to play around with this stuff to figure out what works for you because you can't try to mimic someone else's their routines and then think that that's going to be perfect for you. I know that one of my good friends who's training at a tough team, who's a high level competitor competing at some of the biggest shows in jiu-jitsu, he does not train as hard as some of the people inside the gym that he's with, because they will train a lot more as far as total volume, but he's a bigger guy. And because of that size, it just, whenever he tries to, like, say, train as much as some of these smaller guys, he ends up getting injured every friggin' time. He starts getting running into injuries. And so he's like, no, I'm just not going to do it. He comes in and trains once a day. He might do cardio, might do some lifting, but he just trains once a day rolling wise. And he gets after it, very focused, but then he has to back off, opposed to coming in and rolling twice a day. And so again, you got to play with it and find your own rhythms, your own routines, and be okay if it doesn't look like someone else's. Your job, this is a martial art, right? And as an martial artist, you got to figure out all this stuff, from the game that you play, your style, to the amount of volume that your body can handle effectively. And so if you keep a log, you might keep track of the amount of how many rounds you rolled, how many hours you were in the gym, things of that nature, to go along with that. Now, along with this idea of, monitoring how much you're training, you should be mixing in easy and light days, or excuse me, easy and hard days. So like there would be a day where, let's say, if you train really hard, you might mix in a light day. That's one of the ways that I like to do it during the week, is just to undulate back and forth. So for me currently with my training schedule, Monday is a hard training session day, lots of jiu-jitsu, lots of rolling, hard rolls. Sunday, Monday, both of those that way. Tuesday is a rest day. Now, rest day from jiu-jitsu for the most part, but I typically lift, and I might even roll light in the evening, but I can handle that kind of volume. I'm okay. I can do that. You may not be able to do that. I can do that. Wednesday, hard day again, hard day of rolling. Thursday, again, it'll be maybe drilling in the evening, but then it's like lifting or lifting only. Friday, rolling session. Saturday, only lifting, maybe a little bit of cardio. And then Sunday, we're back to rolling, right? So there's these days where I'm mixing in really light, for me, light amounts of volume. And again, the way that I lift, if you guys have like my swollen roll program, you guys kind of have an idea of it, but I lift in a way that where I'm developing muscle and I'm building strength and all that stuff, isometric strength, but I'm not really taxing my neurological system too much. I can bounce back from that pretty fast. If I was lifting really heavy, like I used to when I was younger, I wouldn't be able to train like this, because I remember when I was younger, when I would lift, I would be trashed after heavy lifts. And it's like, it wasn't like muscle soreness, it was just general fatigue and exhaustion. So again, you can think about mixing in hard days and light days, undulating throughout the week, based on either how you feel, or trying to create a certain type of schedule for yourself where you have these hard days mixed in with light days to recover, or to even complete rest days. I would tell you though that I tend to find I feel better even on my rest days if I do some sort of activity, maybe some light yoga, maybe a nice long walk, something where I get my body moving. I tend to feel like that blood flow helps me recover better for the next day, opposed to just a complete rest day. But complete rest days aren't bad at all.
So one thing that when people are injured, and this can happen sometimes, you do need full rest. But a lot of times people get injured and they don't do anything. They completely don't move their body or their joint that's injured. Like now I said, if you had surgery and there's some kind of restrictions, that's one thing. But like movement within a comfortable and pain-free range is really important, because that can help the recovery. That can help the process of speeding things up and helping things heal. So feeling, well, I hurt my knee, I'm just not going to do anything. I was like, well, let's see what you can do. If you have the guidance, obviously having guidance of someone that understands what the injury is and the extent of it, that's important. But sometimes you do need to rest fully. But a lot of times there's certain things you can do. There's something you can do to kind of help things along. And I'm the same way. Like if I don't do anything all day, lay around, I feel sluggish. Like that day and the next day, I feel real kind of like, it's like it's hard to get my body moving. So doing something, staying active, going for a walk, working in the yard, something that's not super physically taxing,
Exactly.
still kind of helps my mind kind of be focused on something where I'm just not laying around like playing video games all day is never beneficial.
No, I mean, like, I forgot what it was. I think it was last Saturday. I didn't lift or anything. I just hung out at the house with Luca, so me and him, we went and got coffee at the coffee shop together, and then afterwards when we got home, he took a nap, and then we'd been playing that morning, and then later on he got up and we went and walked around the property and played and stuff like that. And, we're moving, we're doing stuff, and
Yeah.
playing with sticks, and we had a, little bonfire and stuff like that. It's fun, but it's like you're still moving around and you're active. You're not just sitting there doing nothing all day being a slug.
Yeah.
So, still got something, and I felt good. And personally, if I can get out in nature, I'll do that in a heartbeat, just getting outside for a bit. Here's an idea that I've been chewing on that might be useful for some of you guys. And that is, again, if you were listening to my schedule, a lot of training going on. There's some days where I'm like, some weeks where I'm not taking any days completely off. And you can train every single day as an older grappler if you want. The difference is that you have to change what you perceive as training, right? A lot of people think of as training as only like they think of the only thing that really encompasses training is them rolling, doing drilling stuff in the gym. That's their training, right? For me, I sort of consider everything a part of my training. It's all a facet of my training. My obviously my training in gym stuff, yes. My diet is part of my training, because I would tell you that my diet has made a massive difference as far as how much volume I can take on. I
Yeah.
remember when I first started with my coach Eli and cleaned my diet up to where I'm eating a very regimented diet. I remember telling him, besides the weight loss and getting lean, one of the craziest things that I noticed was I was training more than I ever had trained before, because I didn't have any joint pain. My hands, which are notoriously, if you guys have seen them, they're like these giant knobby knuckles, with arthritis and stuff like that. I have no pain in them, and a lot of times if I go and eat certain foods, I feel it again. Right. And so I noticed this and I was like, man, I felt great. And, the diet that he has is in part sort of designed to help battle inflammation, because it's something he dealt with. And, so diet's important. Your lifestyle is important, right? Like, I mean, again, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Are you boozing up every night? Are you just sitting down all day? You're never moving around. You're constantly overly stressed over whatever, there's everything plays a role, because when you get to the gym, you're there for an hour, 2, 3, whatever it is. Like, you're spending the rest of the day doing other stuff. So everything that you do outside of the gym for the next, 23, 22 hours is directly going to change how you feel when you come in for that 1 or 2 hours inside the gym, right? It's important. The water you drink, right? The content that you take in, right? If you spend all day all revved up and angry and pissed off because you're scrolling Instagram's political stuff too much, right? That's going to affect your training. You're not going to be in the right mindset. You're not going to be dialed into things. Or if you're just over consuming content where you don't even have any focus for your training because you've watched 16 different cool techniques and then you don't even know what you want to do, right? So much of this applies to it. And so the way that I look at it with that is that, everything from the little bit of mobility that I do, the lifting, the diet, the lifestyle, all of it is training. And I think when you take that into account, you can tweak things to where you can get a little bit of training in every day. And the training may not be super intense, might be a little bit of yoga, might be just a little bit of mobility work. It might be 20 minutes of mobility work in the morning and maybe a long walk. There's your training for the day, right? But that's going to set you up for the next day of training to make you better. It's all training. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And it's a way that you can sort of perceive this to get some sort of training in every day so you can make improvement without busting yourself up and getting broken.
No, I agree. I think I was working with one of my clients who's recovering from surgery, and he's kind of a pretty serious surgery. And we've been kind of working on getting him stronger again. He's like, well, he doesn't work with a nutrition coach or anybody like that. But he's like, well, I'm eating so much better. He's telling me what he's eating. I'm cool. And he's like, well, I'm drinking every night or multiple times. I'm like, you can eat so well. And then you have like just a couple nights of just drinking heavily, not even super heavily. You can screw yourself. I mean, completely screw your calorie intake. I mean, just so you don't realize it, because it's like, you may drink a few drinks or whatever it is, but even just like drinking just bourbon or stuff like
Well,
that,
even
that's
if you're
still
drinking a low calorie alcohol, right? Where you like, if you're not drinking a bunch of beer and you're not getting bloated or whatever, you're drinking maybe some vodka or something, you're still consuming alcohol. And again, I take this from a guy who likes alcohol. I'll have a drink here and there. Ain't
yeah.
no big deal, but it's poison. It's poison for your body. Your liver has to process it. not
Yep,
ideal for recovery. And again,
yep,
if you're already running the ship, in a bad way because of training practices, you don't want to reduce your ability to recover even more so with a bunch of alcohol.
exactly. Just the extra calories that don't do anything for you, and then it impedes your recovery,
And it
and
screws up
then
your sleep.
yeah, and then you just feel like I feel like I don't have to drink a whole lot, and I'll feel like crap the next day. I just feel off, It's like it takes me my body needs some time to like get back up to speed. So I mean, once in a while it's probably fine for whomever, but like that's an easy thing. Like you want to, help yourself out a little bit. That's an easy thing. But a lot of people, it's such a social thing. It's just part of what they do. It's like, oh, every time I go to dinner, I get some drinks or
Mhm.
this or that. It's just, you know, it's tough. It makes recovery definitely tough, especially if you're healing from some kind of surgery or kind of a pretty bad injury. I think limiting that stuff is just a no-brainer.
100%. I mean, I will say that, like, again, I'm a fan of alcohol. Like, I'm not like crazy about it or anything like that, but I'll have a drink. I usually have a drink maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. I like a good, I like a stiff drink, and I'll have
Yeah.
one. And I usually do it so that, like, I will have gone a little while without a meal, and then I'll have the drink, and then it hits you.
There you
So
go.
I don't have to have much, right? And I even this is how neurotic I've become. I weigh out my alcohol. So I put it on the
Really?
food scale. I put it on the food scale. So I know exactly how much because again, like, how am I supposed to, like, again, this is the way I look at it. How am I supposed to know how much alcohol sort of gives me that right amount of buzz? How do I know? I don't know. I mean, I weigh out my coffee. Like, I wanna be precise about everything because, like, if I find something
Interesting.
that works, I don't wanna have to, like, go, "Well, how much was I doing?" It's like the food. If I know that this amount of food makes me do this or that with my weight or feel a certain way with my training, well, then I wanna be able to replicate that. If I'm using a particular medicine, the doctor doesn't say, "Hey, man, we're gonna give you a handful of amoxicillin and hopefully takes care of that staph infection." There's a You're taking this pills, whatever. And so the same thing happens a lot of times when I'm doing things like alcohol. I weigh it out. So this way I know that this many ounces will make me feel a nice buzz, not drunk, but have a nice buzz that I can ride out. And I probably won't feel bad in the morning because then I'll hydrate afterwards and I'll take some extra, like, electrolytes and
Yep.
magnesium. And that seems to, like, take care of it. And I feel like as long as I do those things, I'm pretty good. And I don't have a crazy hangover or anything like that. And I typically drink earlier in the evening and not late in the evening. So this way, like, by the time, like, the buzz is kind of already on its way out by the time I fall asleep, and then I'm ready to go to bed, and then I wake up in the morning and don't feel as bad. Now, again, maybe not everybody wants to be neurotic about their alcohol consumption, but for me, I like waking up in the morning and feeling pretty good. So that's what I do. But I'm a fan of it. But at the same time, it's like I was telling someone, like, I was having a discussion with one of my students. We were talking about weed, and I was like, "You're addicted." And he said, "No, I'm not addicted." I'm like, "Well, you're fucking addicted, dude. Like, because he went out to go do it and then come back in. And it's part of his because he did one class and then went and did it, came back in because I smelled it a little bit, and, it wasn't too bad, but I was like, "Did you go hotbox car?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Stink?" I was like, "Not bad. You're good." But again, I was like, "You're addicted."
Mhm.
Now, we all have addictions, right? I drink coffee every morning, like, so it's whatever, right? But you just have to be honest with yourself about it. If you do something every single day and your body has this impulsive drive to not go without it, that's addiction. Right? Now, you may not feel like you do, but then again, that's just denial, so it is what it is. Like, I talk to so many people who are like, I'm not addicted to coffee." I'm like, "Of course you are." I was like, "You're like, I just like the taste." I'm like, That's the most ridiculous excuse ever. That's not true at all." I was like, Stop drinking caffeine completely for a day, just stop doing it for a week. Tell me how you feel, like, switch to decaf for a week." It's
Right.
not gonna do the same thing for you, you know? But anyway, with alcohol, like, if you feel like you gotta take a drink every night, my friend, you need to get that looked at. You should not feel like a need that every single day you gotta have a drink.
Yep.
Not an ideal situation for you long term as far as your health and everything else. Maybe you get away with it. I know plenty of people who have, but ideally we don't want to go in that route.
Yep.
All right, guys. Sorry to end that with a PSA for drug consumption. Don't want to be like a dare for what is it? The dare commercials from the 1980s and 90s that we grew up with.
Those are the
Uh,
best. They
also,
were very effective.
yeah, very effective. Don't do drugs. Um, again, I just say this. I don't care. You do what you want. I'm just one of those guys where certain things I want to be mindful of, right? Certain compounds I want to be mindful of that don't necessarily add to my life in the way that I want them to. But that said, guys, thank you for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Here are some supplements that you guys could use that will not take away from your life, that will add to it. You can check out our sponsor, Athletic, ATHLETHC. It's got THC like the weed does, right? Again, you can check them out at their website at athletic.com, ATHLETHC. It's a very small amount of THC inside, about 2 milligrams, mixed in with other cannabinoids to help deliver a particular effect that you might be looking for, whether it's to recover, get into the flow state, or just have a more relaxed mindset going into a hard training session. They have 3 different mints. They're called Flow, Power, and Rebound. You can check them out at their website and save 10% using the promo code Chewjitsu10 for 10% off. Also, thanks to our buddies over at Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. They make fantastic jiu-jitsu gear and merch, great quality, great customer service. I get all of my rash guards made through them right now because I like the quality that they do. You can check them out at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. If you guys want to check out Charlotte's Web, another great company that's been sponsoring us for a long time, charlottesweb.com is the website. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu30 for 30% off the order. If you're one of those people like me that has trouble like turning off the chatter in your brain, maybe you're a small business owner, or maybe you're a creative type, or maybe you've got a busy mind, I really have enjoyed their supplement recently. They've got a CBN stay asleep gummy, and it's another reishi. It's like a reishi mushroom. I'll have to look up the name to it. Should have done that already. But again, the CBN supplements in particular is really helpful for me, where if it's been a busy day, I found like my mind's chattering, I'll take it about 30 minutes before bed, and like definitely helps. I remember the first time I took it, I took 2 gummies, which is like the dosage that they recommend. And I was like groggy the next morning. Just too much. I felt like I could have just slept in bed till like 8 o'clock or something, which is not normal for me. And then I did 1 gummy, and then I'm like waking back up around 6:30, which is kind of my time, 6 to 6:30, was waking up early and just felt refreshed, felt pretty good. And it helped me get better sleep, I feel like. And so I've been enjoying the product. And so again, I feel comfortable sharing it with you guys. Now, if you guys want to check it out and see what kind of effect it has on you, you can do that again by going to the website at charlottesweb.com. Also, thanks to not our sponsor, but if you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can check us out at Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. As we mentioned on the podcast today, right? Again, some of the things that you can do is take rest, and you can also start to implement in some light mobility work and things like that here and there as a form of light training, right? And Eugene, over the last couple of years, has done several camps of my jiu-jitsu camps, and he's done these warm-up routines and these stretching routines that use muscle activation with light stretching, and he's done them for the sort of jiu-jitsu problem areas: hips, shoulders, knees, things like that. And if you guys want to check out one of the routine, actually, I think was it 2 of the routines in there, but
there's one. It's more of like more like a full body. Like it kind of hits a little bit of everything. And then we did do a couple other things at the other camps that were more centered around different body parts. Like one's more shoulder, one's more spine, one's more hip. But this one kind of gives you a taste of a little bit of everything.
Okay. If you guys want to get that full body warm-up routine that he did, check it out at our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I use some of those movements pretty much every day as just kind of general maintenance, kind of going back to like how you track your volume and figure out your training. One of the things that you should be doing too is figuring out, just like you were hearing me geek out about how I measure out my alcohol and coffee, right? Because I know the effect of it. Well, I also know how certain exercises and drill, or not drills, but certain movements make my hips and my shoulders and everything else feel. And I do them like every day because it makes me feel better. And so again, it's something to keep in mind. So if you guys want to check that out, you can get that and a lot more and perks and things like that with the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last, guys, but not least, if you guys want to get my daily Chew Crew email by becoming a subscriber. You can do so at my website, jujitsu.net/join. And when you join up, you'll get access to it. And you'll also get access to a free ebook and video that I give away called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which goes into a dozen different training strategies and ideas on how to improve your skill in jiu-jitsu faster by being more focused with your rolling. So again, as a person who doesn't train super hard every single day, I have to be more intentional with my training to be successful, because I can't just rely on more. I have to rely on better, more precise focus. And this will tell you on some different strategies on how to do that. And it's something that I've laid it out because I have a lot more control of my training. You guys probably don't, most of you listening. So I've laid it out in a way that even a white belt coming into the gym can use the strategies, and anybody that is training in the gym who doesn't have control of the training, regimen of their gym, they can still use this style of focus to get something from it. And so if you want to get access to it, check it out at my website, jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And guys, that's it. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you next time.